Perfect. Alrighty. As we're getting everybody logged on here, we'll give it another minute or so. Christi and I were just kind of talking about Olympics and what they have going on right now, all the fun things that we're going into this summer. You guys have a couple new players that you're being signed for the tournament. And when is your next game?
We play on Saturday against Rayadas.
Okay. All right. So this will be like the first kind of, have you played anybody else from outside the league yet? Or is this first?
No, this is first for us. Yeah.
All right. That's exciting. Fun to see like how everybody shapes up against each other.
They definitely been doing some different scout setup this week to prep for that.
Oh, I bet. And now if those teams, they have players like in the Olympics as well, correct?
Or I would assume so. Yeah. I haven't actually asked about that, but that's a good question.
So everybody's kind of like piecing together the teams right now.
Yeah. They'll be here tomorrow. They have some training in the afternoon. So we have to, provide some space for them because obviously they've traveled a long way to be here. So yeah.
That's so fun. That'll be really fun.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get started here in just a minute. While everybody's logging on here, just a little housekeeping. We will have a Q&A section in the bottom here. Would love to have you pop some questions in there for Christi that we will ask towards the end. If anybody has any other comments or anything, you can also put them in there so we can have some discussions on those. And then we will also, this is recorded, so we can send this out if anybody wants to see it afterwards. So I think with that, we'll probably get started here. So thank you everybody who is tuning in. I am Danny Foxhoven Young. This is Christi Edson of Orlando Pride. We are super excited to have you with us today. We are here to discuss sort of your time with Orlando Pride and most importantly, the success that you are having this season with a undefeated season so far, right? So super excited about that. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This should be fun.
Yeah. So if we can just start with a little bit of an introduction to you. So you are head of strength and conditioning and sports science. You've been with Orlando Pride since 2021. I would love to have you just walk us through your journey on getting to Orlando Pride.
Yeah, for sure. I in high school, I was a student athletic trainer, I guess, for football. So you do the ice, you do the taping, you hand out the waters, right? And I enjoyed that so much, the behind the scenes, more than playing basketball. And I decided that I didn't like the blood aspect as much, so I didn't want to go into athletic training. So what was like a sidestep to that? And my homeroom teacher at the time was like, I think it'll be exercise science, something along that realm. So pursued that and then got my bachelor's degree at Florida State, did all of the internships, right? Found a local high school, Temple Christian there, and I did volleyball for 3 years and then did an internship in North Carolina in Charlotte at the US Performance Center. And while that was only 3 months, that's definitely where I got my coaching voice. 8 hours, 3 months, like you're just coaching nonstop in the gym. So I definitely think I matured and grew a lot during that time. Come back, you kind of decide, all right, what am I going to do? What's the next step? Okay, seems like a master's degree. Let's start that up. So I started at UCF and quickly realized that to do another internship, I needed to move to an online program for a master's degree. So got into that, and at the same time saw a posting on Teamworks for a nutrition internship at Orlando City, and I was like, why not, right? Get your foot in the door any way you can. Got on a call, and it was super easy. Like, yep, okay, can you start in next Monday? And I was like, yeah, because I'm on an online program. I can be anywhere you need me to be. So was with the men's side for up until August, I think, a position open to stay with them. And they kind of like redid the position a little bit to be more sports performance, not just supplements or things like that, more sports, more encompassing. And then like fortunately for me, but unfortunately for the club at the time, it was just turnover after turnover. And I just got to kind of stay on and move up and stay on and move up, and ended up taking over the GPS for the men all the way through 2019 and 2020. And then definitely 2020, I was like, man, I need a little bit more work-life balance and a little more stability than what the men's side was showing with all the turnover. So Pride position opened up, and I knew some of the people, and I was texting like, hey, can I slide in? Can I just move over and stay within the family? And thankfully I've been here since then.
That's amazing. So right place, right time, and took advantage of the opportunity. I want to shift that a little bit into your time actually with the Pride then, because you guys have grown and done a ton over the last 4 years. In 2021, you guys finished in 8th overall. The league was obviously a lot smaller then. 2022, it expanded, but kind of landed in the same spot. 2023, super interesting year because pretty much like every team had the opportunity to like win or lose it going into like the last game.
Yeah,
Uh,
we were in the bubble on that day, and it was so disappointing on decision day. We just needed a little bit of help.
yeah, it was so interesting. You almost like could have finished like in third, I think it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And 5 teams ended up within 1 point. So obviously a great season there. And then that brings us into this season where now you guys sit atop the table, your first overall on a 16-game undefeated streak. So if you could just walk us through kind of the journey in being with the Pride and kind of where you guys are in your success now.
Yeah, stability is probably my answer for this year. So, we have some turnover through my time with 21 and again in 22, and then 23 is a first season with the new staff and everybody, and 24 is our first year that we get to all have an off season together and then build into preseason and through the season so far. So stability has been, I think, the biggest difference maker, and I kind of stand on that and believe that. And then within the performance department, it's been expansion, right? So we started 21. It was myself and one athletic trainer, and now we have 6 full-time staff in our department. So being able to be more and better resources to the players, and again, that stability carrying over from 23 has been what I believe to be the biggest difference maker.
That's awesome. And that kind of leads us into what we want to talk about today. So in the data performance section and where your philosophy kind of goes in with that, can you walk us through sort of your philosophy and what you're bringing yourself to the table every day to bring out the best in these athletes?
Yeah. So do the basics well. I kind of stand on that. There's a lot of show on Instagram, but there are a lot of basics on Instagram, and those sometimes don't get the views, but it is the bread and butter of what we do, right? Push, pull, jump, rotate, do it fast, do it slow, do it in multiple planes. I have 11 months with the team versus having a lot of time with them in the off season. During the season is when I have my chance to work with them. Definitely not a time to back off. So we really get to nail down and chip away at it every week. And then player autonomy. This is a big one that I learned during my time at Orlando City. Somebody had one of my colleagues had brought up the word autonomy. We read a paper on it, and I ran with it. And I have found different ways each year to incorporate that a little bit more. Whether that's just a, hey, choice upper body, you get to pick, and I've got the rest of the program laid out. Or, I've even gone so far recently to give sets and reps choices. And sometimes that's a little bit controversial, maybe to give up so much control. But there are times when the group is so split and different people feel different things, and to feel like they got to pick what they did for that day makes a huge difference with the players sometimes. And then last one, be flexible, be adaptable. That is tried and true to even just this weekend with the IT outage and travel plans get messed up. And we had this beautiful periodization plan, for the season. And next thing you know, we're on a 10-hour bus ride home, and we have to give another off day. And then now, instead of a 4-day build-in to this Saturday, we only have a 3-day build-in. So yeah, you have to adapt and kind of go have a skeleton of your periodization, but be able to make decisions as you get to them.
Awesome. That's really helpful here. And again, to kind of shift that into sort of how data fits into that and what that periodization schedule looks like and everything. For those of you who are not familiar with GPS Data Viz, I wanted to take a second here to kind of go through what we do and how we partner with Orlando Pride and Christi here. So on a very high level, GPS Data Viz is essentially a new athlete management system. We do things a little differently though. So we basically can take across all your different technologies, put them in one platform, and then send automated insights from that data to make it really easy. So trying to really take out the time that Christi has to spend in the actual data and in the Excel spreadsheets, we do that for you. There's 3 different ways that you can interact with the data. So we have our platform. We also have our automated email insights, which we'll go into a little bit. And then we have our mobile app, which is where the athletes can have access to their own data. So we will dive into that a little bit, but I want to hear from you, Christi, what your guys' tech stack is. Walk us through your technology.
Yeah, so Stat Sports is the big one. GPS on the field, got to have some sort of external tracker. Vald is how I would say we track them in the gym. So we have force plates, we have a NordBoard force frame as well. So we have multiple avenues to track them on that. And then this year, my prize possession was we got VBT, and we chose output for us in a couple of different reasons. But thankfully, we are able to play with all these data and technologies and then utilize them and then put them into your system as well.
Perfect. So walk us through sort of what that collection looks like and how you are using each of those technologies throughout the week.
Yeah, so GPS is on the field. So that's return to play. That's just load tracking for each training session. That's load tracking for the game. And then download that once we get back inside. We do have a live watch that we are able to cut drills while we're out there as well. We have a wellness survey that we give out to the players. We need that subjective marker. How are they feeling? How do they perceive that they're feeling, right? So every morning they're supposed to fill that out. And then we can have a little chat as a medical performance department before the session starts. VBT, the big way that I've used that this year is just the drive intent. So while there are ranges that you can progress them through or ask them for the loading purposes to be within a certain range, the biggest way that I've used it is just to drive intent. You might feel that you can't do more, but this is telling me that you're lifting it really well and strong, and so it looks like you can push if you really want to. And then jumps, we do jumps first day back in, not necessarily every Monday or every Tuesday, whatever our first day back in is after a match, and we kind of track that week over week.
Perfect. And so I know this is something that we talked about kind of going into it. I wanted to show everybody how applicable it is and what how DataViz actually fits into like your day-to-day. So we'll start with jumping here. So you bring them into jump. This is what your sort of after you jump them, what the report would actually look like. So you'd come in here, click upload. It's literally a couple clicks here. You choose who the email wants to get sent to, and then it gets sent right to them. A report ends in your inbox like 20 seconds later. So walk me through actually your process so that everybody can hear how you applicably use this.
Yeah, so we've been jumping since we got the force plates in late 21, 22, and I was never able to get a report before the training session. And I like, that's not even a joke. It was always after the training session. So I was even asking myself, why are we jumping if we're not actually able to make changes? When we were able to use this, and it really is that simple. I bring my computer with me into the gym. Have the iPad as we get all of the jumps in. I step onto the computer, API push, send the report to myself, read over it really quick, and then forward it on to the rest of my staff. And I'm walking out to the field as I'm getting that report and reading that. So I still don't have an answer to get jumps hours before or anything like that. If any S&C coach has that answer, so we can really make changes. But as I'm walking out to the field, I'm more informed, and now I can say something quickly to an athletic trainer or to a coach or what have you, and not wait 3 hours until we get back inside.
Yeah. And for everybody to see, this is what she's talking about. So essentially she pulls that report. This would be the email then that lands in her inbox literally 20 seconds later. So it would have actually a breakdown of what that jump session was, how many jumps they happened, anybody who was flagged, meaning they were outside at 2 standard deviations outside of their historical mean, anybody who hit new PRs, so kind of like who's doing really well today, and then a report that's actually attached to that as well. If you wanted to pull open the report, then it would look something like this. So it has like historical team averages here. It has anybody who hit new PRs, top performers, and then anybody who's flagged. With that then would show the breakdown of team averages, player breakdown, and you can see everything that we do at GPS DataViz is color coded. So, you know, who's in the red for their numbers, who's in the green, who's in their normal range. And then if anybody was flagged, we would actually automatically pull their report. So you don't need to go digging in the data and find, you know, so-and-so's report. It's just attached right to it.
And if you can go back to the player breakdown, that is one of my favorite graphs, because not only do I get the individualized, like where are they to themselves, but then I do get to see where they are within the team. So maybe it is just something as simple as jump height, right? And I do want to know, okay, where do you fall within the team on a regular basis, and then where do you fall within your normal? And that's one of my favorite graphs for that.
Yeah. And so then after practice, you guys come back after training and you're essentially doing the same thing with your GPS data, correct?
Yeah. So it takes a little bit longer to cut the data and download the data itself, but same thing happens, API upload, and then a report is pushed from your end.
Yeah. And so the GPS data or insights looks a little bit different because it actually gives a little bit more insights based on what the training session was. But essentially it would start and say like today's session was, again, sliding scale, green, yellow, red. It looks forward. So tomorrow, you know, you have a game at Seattle Reign or whatever it is. It then looks backwards 2 previous days and comparing today's session to the 2 previous days. Again, if it were like a match day -1, what were the 2 weeks prior on match day -1 or relative day of the week? So if it was a game day, what was that game day in the 2 previous weeks prior? Then it starts shifting into individuals here who worked harder or less hard than the general group. If anybody hasn't hit top speed numbers, and then if anybody's flagged for being over or underworked. So again, that comes then with injury report and then the report that's attached to that. And I'll just run through it really quickly so people can actually see. But this would be like what the report would look like for you guys, right? So it has those bullet points up top. It has team averages down below that, and then where today's session was in comparison to a game baseline. Some people like to see it as like a table breakout. So where everybody is, again, you'll see green, yellow, and red. So some coaches might not know what 400 player load means, but you know that that's like a red day for that player. You mentioned drill breakdowns. So you guys cut your drills. This gives that drill breakdown then. Individuals in comparison to their game baselines. So, you know, today's player load was at a 50% for somebody. You can quickly look through that. Team averages on acute to chronic workload ratio. So how's everybody feeling on a team average over the last month? Team breakdown, same thing that you said earlier. So like, how is each player breaking down in today's session? And then lastly, if anybody's flagged, they will be included in at the end of this for being overworked or underworked. So you could actually look and see how's everybody feeling. Anything you want to point out about these reports at all?
I think for me, like the bullet points are great. They really do give more context and statistical analysis than the eye catches. But at the same time, like you are the practitioner, so maybe I wanted. I think you had a bullet point there of somebody being overworked. There's also one of somebody being underworked. Maybe that was intentional, right? And that's not something that the AI would know, but as the practitioner, that you would know that I wanted that person, so I hope to see that bullet point. That they were worked less than the group today, or what have you. Maybe they're sick, right? And they just needed an extra day, so we pulled off a couple drills for them. That's intentional, and I want that to be pointed out. So that's just something to keep in mind for us on those. But yeah, the team average one is definitely one of my favorites. It's very easy to read, very easy for the coach to digest and see, like, okay, this maybe wasn't a time that we wanted to push and we did. So how do we make adjustments moving forward?
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, that's really helpful. So then with all of that data that you're collecting, tell us how that actually impacts what you do on the day and how you're managing your athletes.
Yeah, one of the big things we've learned is that a counter movement jump is not going to pull anybody from a training session, right? We get all these technologies as young strength coaches, and we're like, oh, this is going to tell me if somebody can train or how somebody can train, and that's not necessarily the case. You have to put all the puzzle pieces together. So it's It's a secondary stop for us. It's a monitoring tool. It's not a diagnostic tool like an ultrasound or an x-ray or something like that, right? So we get a counter movement jump, we get the wellness survey, we have the athletic trainer who has, conversation and movement quality from them. And then we have a full staff performance department meeting in the morning and go through all of those bullet points. Okay, well, this popped up and this popped up and this popped up. What adjustments can we make for the training session, right? So that's kind of how those conversations are started. And maybe it's only as simple as like, okay, we're not going to change their entire session, or we're not going to pull them out of a drill because the coach, has planned this session for this number of people or whatever. And they're fine. They're not going to, we don't believe that they're going to injure themselves. We're just going to maybe monitor the number of long strikes or long balls if it's some sort of quad thing that has popped up, right? Just a little irritation. So like, hey, let's put a cap on it. So that way we've at least made some adjustments there, and you're not just out there striking balls as hard as you can, right? Or maybe for that individual athlete, all of these little things have popped up, and they're normally a person who asks for extras after a training session. Today, we're just not going to do extras. We're just going to get you inside, some extra recovery, make sure that you get a massage slot, on the table. And so again, they're just conversations that help drive decisions once you put all of the pieces together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And now leading into the webinar, kind of going off of that, we talked about what part of the platform you guys feel like you use most often. And you mentioned the mobile app, athletes having access to their own data, and then the wellness piece. So let's dive into that a little bit. For everybody to see, this is actually what the app looks like. This would be the player interface. So athletes could come on here onto the app and see their own historical data. They could see also how today broke down and sort of where they fall in those 4 key metrics for today. I could not go back and see your historical data, but I could see mine, right? So tell me about the decision making in saying that is an important part that we want to have our athletes have access to. Why was that so important for you?
Yeah, it was a big conversation for us last year, making sure that the athletes had their data back, and were able to be involved in their conversations, right? So we were pushing PDFs like crazy, and I was getting very irritated that I was spending the last few hours of my day pushing individual PDFs through each message chat. But I did believe they needed their GPS, they needed their force plates or Nordics or whatever. And that was a big struggle for us. And on top of that, then the second part was we were having all of these apps. So wellness was on this app, so we need you to download this app. Then we've got this other app that this is where your workouts are going to come through. Then we've got this other app. I need you to download this as well. And I was like, that's too much to ask for. So how can we get it all on one place? And I promise you, you guys swooped in at the right time, because we were already having these conversations, and that email came through, and I was like, wait a minute, we might have something here.
The solution. I love that. Yeah. So then kind of shifting over to the wellness part of it. So the wellness piece would look like this. You guys can send a push notification. You said you use it every day. So a push notification comes to your athletes, they open it up and go through the questionnaire that you guys are asking every day. And then on the back end, you guys are getting a report that looks something like this. Again, green, yellow, and red reporting how is each player saying they're feeling, what's the team average. You then could see, like, on the weekly basis, like how everybody's reporting. And on this body map here, you can kind of see, as you could slide through the days and then show like 9 of 19 players reported sore hamstrings or whatever. So how is this utilized between your departments to have conversations?
Yeah, I think the individual piece is the huge piece for me. Our previous wellness operator or provider would just give you the average out of 100, let's say. But that doesn't mean anything to me if that athlete's normal is 70%. That is their normal. So I want to know how it changes from 70 day to day. And that's one of the big pieces that you guys provided for us. And then like you said, being able to get these automated reports. So once 8:30 hits and we're like, okay, it's closed, we need to have these in because we're stepping into our meeting, send the report out so we can all read through it on our phones real quick, make the quick highlights, and then move on from there. Another big thing that you haven't mentioned, but how we've utilized the system is we kind of have a rotating question. because I've done wellness now for the last 3 years and plus with the men's side, and it becomes all fours, all fours, all fours. They just answering as quick as they can to just to get it done. So we have a rotating question that we pop in and out, and we've kind of made that a nutritional piece. So we have a full-time dietitian that we're grateful to work with, and she's able to pop in some different nutritional questions, and that's how we keep the survey from being just routine and that they can just slide through. Hopefully that change in question make sure that it's a little more accurate.
That's awesome to hear. Because yes, I know a lot of people are just like click, click, click through, but it is an important part to getting the information that you want, which kind of leads me into the platform itself. This is what the platform looks like. What I wanted to point out on the heels of what you're saying there is on the right here, you have the individual breakdown of each player, and you can see, oopsies, I don't know why that happened. You can see the key metrics are across the top here on the acute to chronic workload ratio. The two at the end here are readiness and overall, and that's actually where we're pulling in the wellness surveys and data that we're collecting from the athletes in conjunction on top of the actual metrics that you're getting to show like a readiness and overall score for each player. So that's kind of how that fits in together and why it's nice to have it in a centralized spot. On the left here, then you can also see the calendar breakdown, and a couple things I just wanted to point out. You guys obviously have a really crazy schedule where games are all over the place. So having a visualization of what each day breakout looks like is really important. You can see, green, yellow, and red days, which days are games. It also lets you visualize which days are travel and rest days, which actually came from an NWSL. That idea came from an NWSL team. So, adding that piece in, I think is really important for you guys to see like what's the big picture here. And one thing I wanted to pull out here and show kind of another piece to what we do and is the idea that we can actually now take that historical data and use it looking forward to predict what we want the rest of the week to look like. So you kind of mentioned like big picture predict, we want our periodization schedule to look like this. Well, looking forward, if we say we want to have Thursday, be a yellow day, well, you could actually come in here based on your drill's historical value, you could build out a yellow day on Thursday, and here's what the session's going to look like. So I just wanted to kind of point out what the capabilities are of the platform itself. There's a million different ways you can work in the platform, but I wanted to kind of show that. Is there any other pieces of the platform that you feel like you guys really use a lot or find value in?
I really like the percentages. So if you click back maybe one slide, the little toggle over there is one of my favorite things. Because yes, you have the lines and that is helpful, but I like the number. So I just toggle that over and it changes from the T's and the G's to an actual percentage number of the bucket filled. That's one of my favorites. I click that pretty much every day. But yeah, this is the overall view. I love the breakdown of the day, the little tab there that says breakdown. Very quickly, I'm able to look at RPEs. What did people feel the session was? It's very hot here, so RPEs are a little high right now with the heat. But that's a big tab that I'm in a lot as well.
Wonderful. Awesome. That's super helpful. So a couple things that are just like on the docket, they will be coming because we are always trying to innovate, add new things. We have an automated weekly report that should be coming soon. And the idea behind that is really that we can pull data from across your different technologies and put it into one weekly report for you. So your force plate, your GPS, your wellness survey, all in one spot in one weekly email for you. And then lastly, our data viz AI, which I love that you actually asked, you're like, what's this? Is really interesting. So this is our newest thing that's coming out. Essentially, you could ask whatever you want into the AI bot and it will interrogate, your own data and kind of spit out an answer for you. So, so we're super excited about a couple innovations that we have coming. Lastly, I think I do have some questions here, so I just want to open it up to questions for anybody. But here's the first question for you, Christi. Are you ready? All right, so it says, based on a player's baseline data points taken from game days, what percentage should they be hitting percentage-wise on a different training days in order to peak for the following game? Wow, that's a long question, tough one.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for this answer, but it depends. It depends on the travel. Was it home or away? It depends on the game. Did they play more or less than what they usually do? We're in summer cup right now, so some athletes who haven't been getting minutes are now getting minutes, right? So their weekly breakdown is a little bit different. For me, I'm not as concerned about the exact percentage numbers, but I do want to see the different types of day. So on our small space intensive day, that is and should be for me an overload of A cell, D cells and meters per minute. So high heart rate, interval type work, and we're changing direction at hard and high levels. That is my place that I would love to get a minimum of a game or a game overload. Doesn't always work that way, but as long as we can get some work specifically towards that. Next would be the intensive day for us. We love a midweek day off, so our intensive and speed day has to be the same. But high speed running is where I overload that and kind of bring down the A cell D cells a little bit, get a sprint in, like we've seen on that bullet point. But having the different types of days and getting as close to a game, 70% of a game, somewhere in that, as best you can. And it varies as ultimately as to what the coach decided for the session, right? But as long as you have the different types of days is where I feel more comfortable.
Awesome. We got another question here for you. What weekly undulation do you use for off-season training?
Oh, so unfortunately the players leave, so I don't really get a lot of them with me. But in the off-season packet that I do provide, I try to go in big blocks, and I am heavy strength. So I give them a sort of cross training type thing. Go do something completely different, right? Move your body in a different way. Go paddleboarding. Go do something weird and fun, and enjoy being a non-soccer player for a little bit. And then hopefully this off season will be really short. So we won't have a lot of time, but we will push as much as we can. And then I very quickly try to get them onto the undulation that we have for the week when they come back in season. So 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, and then some sort of, maybe it's a big aerobic day simulating a game, right? Or maybe a big lift to finish that. And then another day off leading into the next week. That's kind of how I try to quickly get them onto the same schedule.
Awesome. Well, with that, thank you so much, Christi. You know, I had to finish with a picture of you and Marta, the goat.
Yeah. Yeah, back in COVID times still. Yeah.
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 Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. If anybody else has questions, feel free to email us. We'll be happy to get back to you. Again, this is recorded so we can send it out. And Christi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.